I always had my concerns about investing in China. I think I've said to you before, be very careful when you invest in something that you really know what you're investing in, that you understand what you're investing in. And let's be honest, with some of these countries, especially countries that maybe we don't necessarily trust for good reason, you should be very careful about investing in, whether that be Russia or whether that be China. And that certainly is proving to be true amid concerns that President Xi is stacking the deck, giving himself a third term because he's the only one in charge. We're going to talk about all of that today, plus new leadership in the UK. What does that mean for the UK's economy? What does it mean on the international front? I actually think this is a really good thing for the UK. I think there's some things that Rishi Sunak can do to fix the place up, and I'm excited to talk about that. Meanwhile, who the heck is going to fix us, right? I mean, we've got our own mess here at home, economically speaking, and then the nation's report card just came out, and wow, it's not good. I mean, we knew it wouldn't be, let's be honest, right? I think I warned of that going all the way back to March 2020, both on the economic front and also, of course, on the social front. I think the biggest mistake we ever did was shut the country down in such a massive way because it left us with so many other problems, the likes of which we're going to be dealing with, frankly, for the next decade. And that's economic, that's social problems, that's all the things that we're encountering now. And nobody really has the ability or willingness, shall we say, to fix. But before I get to that, this is a big deal. 44 days, and then she was gone. By the way, portions of today's program, I should point out, are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There's never been a better time to invest in precious metals for the long term. Assuming you want to hold those for the long term, I'm a big believer in things like gold. So check out legacypminvestments.com today or call 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560. Also, a little later in the week, I'm going to have a big newscast, a 1 hour long program where we're just talking about the challenges, economic challenges we're facing right now with the head of Legacy Precious Metals. So be on the lookout for that. But before we get to China, before we get to us, I want to know, what do you think? Can this guy actually save the UK? I have pretty high hopes. I liked the sort of Margaret Thatcher enthusiasm of Liz Truss, but let's be realistic in that what she wanted to do was completely out of line with what the Federal Reserve, or their equivalent of the Federal Reserve, that would be the Bank of England, was trying to do. And as such, she didn't have the ability or the political capital to go forward with those massive tax cuts at a time when they were doing everything they could to rein in inflation and therefore drag all the money out of the system rather than put more in. It's a good thing for Joe Biden to notice, only in that what he's trying to do right now, and by the way, it's getting held up for legal reasons with the student loan program, is very similar to what she was trying to do with tax cuts. In other words, it's free money giveaways, all while our Federal Reserve is doing everything it can. Well, not everything. I think it could and should be doing a whole lot more, but doing what it can to restrict that money supply and rein in inflation. And so you have the left hand and the right hand basically not talking to each other at all and working against each other. That's what was happening in the UK. It spooked people. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening here. That's what you've seen with all of this stimulus, including the effort by the administration to have the giveaways for college grads or people that didn't graduate, right? That dropped out of college. So what can Rishi Sunak do there in the UK? Well, he has the benefit of actually having a financial background, and then he came from the investment banking industry. He's got a great story, right? His parents were immigrants, and that, I think, speaks to the opportunity that a place like the UK and a capitalist system can present, certainly something that we have still here in the United States. So that's a good story. But again, going back to the fundamentals of understanding what's at play economically speaking, especially given Brexit, especially given the complexity of everything that's happening right now on the inflation front and higher energy prices, I am hopeful that this is a guy who can find his way through, that can figure this out so that eventually maybe you are in the position of being able to offer these better tax cuts and enable more businesses and more people to take ownership of things and to keep more of what they earn. So good things ahead for the UK, I suspect, and I think investors reflected that when you saw the market of course, on Monday, jumping quite a bit. That shows that optimism that's there. Whether or not we have it here is still remains to be seen. It's big earnings week. We've got Apple coming out Thursday. Everybody's curious about how those iPhones did. I know I bought one. I don't know about you, but it's going to be an indicator in terms of whether or not consumer spending is really holding up. We get into the U.S. some more because I do want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of the nation's report card. I just briefly want to touch on this issue of what's going on in China, because it's something that I've spoken about in the past quite a bit. You need to understand what it is that you're investing in. You certainly need to understand the country that you're investing in. And I have a lot of concerns, obviously, about China, emerging markets in general. I know I actually come from that world because that was my first job, covering emerging markets, specifically Latin America. And that's a world that I think can be very tricky. As they used to say to me, hey, welcome to the Wild West, because it really felt that way. It was a no man's sort of wild environment. And you need to remember that. You need to remember that about these markets. So US listed Chinese stocks, they lost tens of billions of dollars in market value on Monday because investors are basically trying to say to themselves, what the heck does this all mean? You get the Chinese Communist Party with its National Congress meeting over the weekend. You get President Xi really stacking the deck for himself and for his people and getting that third term. There was also this really dramatic moment where the former leader was actually taken out, and nobody's entirely sure exactly why he was removed in such a public setting, in such a public way. He didn't seem to know what was going on either. There's some concern that you will not have that free market that is so desired and needed for these Chinese companies to really achieve what they want to and need to achieve. Meanwhile, you still have the whole Ukraine-Russia thing going on. So there's a lot of fear surrounding that, but again, should be expected. Should be expected because there's a lot of fear in the world right now. There's a lot of bad stuff going on. Again, from an economic and social viewpoint, I want to point out these really disastrous scores on the school front. Again, not something that really should surprise us, but nonetheless, stuff that's disappointing to see, only in that I think that it was all so preventable. The National Assessment of Educational Progress report that just came out showing a really dramatic and disastrous decline in both math and reading scores for kids in the 4th and the 8th grade. There's one group that I know is working pretty hard, before I get into the details of this, to prevent stuff like this from happening in the future. One group that really wants to make sure American students are properly positioned to be able to compete on the global stage, and that's the folks over at AMAC, working hard both on the inflation front, but also on the social front to ensure that our kids are going to school, right? And not only are they going to school, this is important these days, they're learning when they're at school. So this is a group that I kind of like to call the conservative equivalent of the AARP, because they've got all kinds of great things for you to be involved in terms of helping you to plan your financial future and your future in general. But the Association of Mature American Citizens really is committed to ensuring a prosperous and free America in the future. So check them out, just $16 a year. You get all kinds of free things and all kinds of guidance in terms of your retirement and your planning and healthcare plans and all that good stuff. So go to amac.us/Regan, my last name, Regan, AMAC, that's amac.us/Regan. If you're watching on YouTube, I have it on the screen. And check them out. You can renew your membership, or you can join today. You're joining forces with 2+ million people that probably think a lot like you and I do. So again, amac.us/Regan. But this stuff comes to, school, I think strikes a chord with people, because we need an educated population in order to keep succeeding. China's been working since the, Song dynasty, thousands of years ago, to make sure that they have an educated population. In fact, back then, students from all over the country would participate in exams. Anybody could participate, and they were blind exams in that anyone who wanted to take the exam could, and there was no sort of preferential treatment to certain families, because you were given just a number. This is a very long time ago, but it was seen as a chance for upward mobility in their culture. There were only at one point some 333 jobs you could even get, and they had 400,000 people taking this exam. So you can see that exams and studying and getting ahead and seeking opportunity from an educational perspective has long been part of China's history. And it's important that it be ours too. I mean, we're obviously a much younger country, but we've historically always been tops in education. And we need to continue being tops in education. But in order to do that, you need to have a good fundamental start. And when you see fourth graders and eighth graders slipping as badly as they have, in fact, slipping the most, these are the largest declines since 1990 when they first began tracking this stuff. When you see that and you see that kids are not reading the way they once were, they're not able to do math the way they once were, that's a big problem. Problem certainly as a result of the shutdowns and so many kids that lacked education during that time and lacked even access to education because maybe they didn't have the laptop or the printer at home to do things. And getting shut out of school was a travesty that I think is just unforgivable. What our teachers' unions did, what our government did, really and truly unforgivable, because we left these kids out in the cold and they're going to continue to struggle for a long time. And you look across at some of the poorest areas. I mean, everybody did badly on this. So you can't say, well, it was just these communities, but certainly some poor communities in here who are socially disadvantaged and frankly run by leadership in the Democrat Party that really isn't doing what it needs to do to look out for these kids. They're the ones that actually are still further and further behind. So they had the most disruptions in their education. And this stuff is real and this stuff is concerning. And look, I know China's dealing with aspects of it too, and they still are, given all those rolling shutdowns that they've got going on. But we need to remember we got to protect our youth. We got to educate our youth, and they are the key to us succeeding in the future. Of keys to succeeding in the future and everybody's mental health these days. I got my own little guy who's actually hanging out here. In fact, let's take a look. So make sure that you go to my YouTube channel or make sure you go to my Rumble channel and you subscribe to the podcast there. And if you're over there, by the way, make sure you subscribe to the one on audio, which is on Apple and on Spotify. Anyway, this is Fluffy. If you haven't met Fluffy, he is hanging out with me here a lot. And I figure I'm entitled, right? Because this is my emotional support animal. He's a big part of my life and my family's life. And I love him very, very much. And it's why I care so much about what he eats. And I want to make sure that he gets all those nutrients. And I do this by giving him a little bit of this supplement right here. I'm going to put it over here. I don't want to get him too excited, but this is called Rough Greens. And I met the founder of this company, right? You met him too, actually, Fluffy. You met him too. We were talking to him. And he created this supplement with essential vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and digestive enzymes that is there for your dog to ensure your dog gets the nutrition that he or she needs. And so this little guy loves it. It makes his food taste better, I think. Yeah, it makes his coat really fluffy and shiny. And now he has all the reason in the world to hang out with me here. He was barking a little bit earlier. I said, hey, buddy, your time's not up yet. But now you're here. So now you could bark if you wanted to. But he's pretty good that way. He's pretty good. Anyway, I love this because now he loves to eat his food. He's always been a little bit of a picky eater. But with this stuff on it, it tastes great. So Dr. Dennis Black, he's a naturopathic doctor. I met him. He told me all about this. He's got some dogs himself that he cares so passionately about. And he wants to make sure that everybody is ensuring their dog's health. I mean, we got to ensure our own health, of course, but then you got to ensure his health as well. So Dr. Black is offering for fans of this program a free bag of the supplement that I promise you, your dog's going to love it too. I'd be shocked if he or she didn't. So go check it out. Go to ruffgreens.com today, ruffgreens.com, to get the free bag that Dr. Black is offering. You just have to cover the shipping. And I think it's a good thing, right? Anyway, it's great to have all of you here as always. Thank you for all your warm wishes and all your support. Fluffy thanks you too. And we'll talk some more tomorrow because these issues aren't going away. And when we look at the challenges U.S. students face, when we look at the challenges the U.S. economy faces, when we look at the rate on the 10-year, right, the treasury yield going up well over 4%, it tells you more trouble is coming up ahead. And I'm glad that the UK is trying to figure it out. I hope they can. I think China is going to continue to be a problem. I think the Ukraine-Russia situation is a problem for the global economy and for energy prices. We definitely need to do more here at home, but it's going to be choppy and it's going to be volatile. And we all need to kind of just prepare and be ready for it. I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you go to my website, trishaintel.com. Sign up for the newsletter, the free newsletter, by the way, and I'll see you tomorrow.